I inherited my grandfather's landscaping business, but my wife secretly promised it to her daughter without telling me. Now they're furious. I won't hand it over. I'm James, 55, and I've been married to Abigail, 52F, for 3 years. Abigail has a daughter, Emily, 23F, from her previous marriage. I own a successful landscaping business that I inherited from my grandfather 25 years ago. I met Abigail at a community gardening event 5 years ago. I was there representing my landscaping business, which was sponsoring the event. Abigail was a volunteer coordinator. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love of plants and outdoor spaces. We started dating soon after. Abigail was divorced and had full custody of Emily, who was in college at the time studying business. I was a widower. My wife, Lisa, passed away from breast cancer 7 years ago. Lisa and I tried for years to have children, but were never able to conceive. It was a source of great sadness for us both. When Lisa got sick, we focused all our energy on her treatment and recovery. Losing her was devastating, and for years after, I threw myself into work to cope with the grief. Meeting Abigail felt like a second chance at happiness. She was warm, funny, and shared my passion for gardening. Emily was skeptical of me at first, which I understood. Her parents had divorced when she was 12 after her dad Mike had an affair. It took time, but Emily gradually warmed up to me. We're not super close, but we get along fine. Emily's dad Mike is still involved in her life, and they see each other regularly. Abigail and I got married after 2 years of dating. It was a small ceremony in my backyard garden with just close family and friends. Emily was Abigail's maid of honor. At the time, I really felt like we were becoming a family. Now for the current issue. Last week was Emily's college graduation. We attended the ceremony and then hosted a dinner party at our house to celebrate. During dessert, Emily casually mentioned that she was excited to take over my landscaping business now that she had her business degree. I was completely blindsided by this. I looked at Abigail in confusion, but she avoided eye contact. Emily kept talking about her plans for expanding the business and bringing in new clients. I sat there in shock, not knowing how to respond without causing a scene at her graduation party. On the drive home, I asked Abigail what Emily was talking about. That's when Abigail confessed that she had promised Emily 4 years ago that she could take over my business after graduating college. I was stunned and angry. Abigail had made this huge promise about my business without even discussing it with me first. I told her there was no way Emily was taking over. I had plans to keep running it for at least another 10-15 years before retiring. Abigail got defensive and said I was being selfish. She said Emily was counting on this and I needed to give her a chance. I refused and said Emily had no experience in landscaping and wasn't qualified to run my business. This turned into a huge argument. Some additional context about the business. My grandfather started this landscaping company from scratch over 60 years ago. He came to this country as an immigrant with nothing, barely speaking English. He started out mowing lawns and slowly built up a client base. He worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week, for years. When I was a teenager, I started working summers and weekends at the business. My grandfather taught me everything about landscaping: how to properly prune trees, design irrigation systems, choose the right plants for different climates and soil types. But more than that, he taught me about running a business with integrity, treating employees fairly, and always putting in your best effort. When he passed away 25 years ago, he left the business to me in his will. I've poured my heart and soul into it ever since. We now have 50 employees and are one of the top landscaping companies in our area. We do everything from residential garden design to large commercial projects. This business means everything to me. It's not just a job, but my passion and my family's legacy. I had always planned to eventually pass it on to my own children. When Lisa and I couldn't have kids, I started thinking about grooming one of my longtime employees to take over someday. But I'm only 55 and not ready to retire anytime soon. I still have a lot I want to accomplish with the business. The day after the graduation party, Emily called me to discuss transitioning the business to her. I had to bluntly tell her that was never going to happen, and her mom had no right to promise her my business. Emily was furious and hung up on me. Abigail is now staying at her sister's house and refuses to speak to me until I make this right with Emily. But I feel I did nothing wrong here. This is my livelihood and my family's legacy. I'm not just going to hand it over to my inexperienced stepdaughter because of a promise Abigail made without my knowledge. Emily has no landscaping experience whatsoever. Her business degree is in marketing. She's never expressed any interest in plants or landscaping before. She's never even had a summer job with my company. I suspect Abigail just saw this as an easy way for Emily to have a ready-made career. I do feel bad that Emily got her hopes up, but I can't just hand over a multi-million-dollar company to an inexperienced 23-year-old, family or not. My employees and Cuss Jamesers depend on me. Some of my employees have been with the company for 20-plus years. I can't betray their trust by putting someone with no experience in charge. Abigail keeps saying I'm being cruel to Emily and that I should at least let her work for the company. But Emily has made it clear she expects to be put in charge right away. I worry bringing her in at all will just lead to more conflict. This whole situation has me questioning my marriage. I love Abigail, but I'm deeply hurt that she would make such a huge decision about my business behind my back. I'm also concerned about her judgment. How could she think it was okay to promise my company to her daughter without even talking to me first? Part of me wonders if Abigail has always seen my business as a meal ticket for her and Emily. When we first started dating, she would make comments about how nice it must be to own your own successful business. I brushed it off at the time, but now I'm second-guessing everything. I'm also hurt that Emily seems to feel so entitled to my business. I've always tried to be kind to her and make her feel welcome in my home. But I'm not her father, and she's not entitled to inherit my life's work just because her mom married me. The whole situation has stirred up a lot of complicated emotions. I miss Lisa and find myself wondering how different things would be if she was still here. Would we have had children to pass the business on to? Would I be in this mess at all? I know I need to stand firm about not handing over my business, but I'm worried about the impact on my marriage. Abigail is painting me as the villain, but I don't think I'm being unreasonable here. Am I the asshole for refusing to let Emily take over my business? Should I try to compromise somehow or stand my ground? I feel like I'm going crazy here and could use some outside perspectives. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since my original post. A lot has happened, so I wanted to give an update. First, I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. Reading the comments helped me realize I wasn't crazy for feeling upset about this situation. Abigail finally came home after staying with her sister for 10 days. We had a long talk about everything. I explained again how hurt and betrayed I felt that she would make such a huge promise about my business without even discussing it with me first. Abigail apologized and admitted she was wrong to do that. She explained that 4 years ago, Emily was struggling in college and talking about dropping out. Abigail panicked and made the promise about my business as a way to motivate Emily to stay in school and get her degree. She said she always meant to talk to me about it but kept putting it off. While I understand her intentions, I told Abigail that doesn't excuse lying to Emily for years or putting me in this impossible position. Abigail agreed and said she would talk to Emily to set things straight. Unfortunately, that conversation with Emily did not go well at all. Emily refused to accept that she wouldn't be taking over the business. She accused Abigail of lying and manipulating her. Then she turned on me, calling me selfish and saying I was stealing her future. I tried to calmly explain my position, that this was my livelihood and my family's legacy, that Emily had no experience in landscaping, and that I wasn't ready to retire. But Emily wouldn't listen to reason. She stormed out and has been refusing all contact with us since then. Abigail is devastated. She keeps crying and saying she's ruined her relationship with her daughter. Part of me feels bad for her, but another part is still angry that her actions caused this whole mess in the first place. To make matters worse, Emily's dad, Mike, got involved. He called me and threatened to sue for breach of contract. I had to explain there was never any contract, and Abigail had no authority to promise my business to anyone. Mike eventually backed down when he realized he had no legal grounds, but he's still furious with me. The whole situation has put a huge strain on my marriage. Abigail and I are barely speaking. She spends most of her time crying in the guest room. When we do talk, it usually turns into an argument about Emily. I'm starting to wonder if our marriage can survive this. I love Abigail, but I don't know if I can ever fully trust her again after this betrayal. And I resent being made out to be the bad guy when I did nothing wrong. As for the business, I've decided to be proactive. I'm meeting with my lawyer next week to update my will and create an ironclad succession plan. I'm also going to start seriously considering which of my longtime employees might be suited to take over when I eventually retire. I want to make it 100% clear that Emily will never be inheriting or running this business. It may seem harsh, but I need to protect myself and my employees. Emily has already shown she can't be trusted to act rationally about this. The whole situation has brought up a lot of memories of my grandfather and the early days of the business. I remember how proud he was when I started working summers there as a teenager. He would introduce me to clients as my grandson and future owner of the company. I feel like I would be betraying his memory if I just handed the business over to someone with no connection to its history or passion for the work. I've also been thinking a lot about my late wife, Lisa. She was always so supportive of my work with the business. She understood the long hours and stress because she saw how much it meant to me. I wonder what advice she would give me in this situation. I think she would tell me to stand my ground and protect what I've worked so hard to build. In moments of frustration, I find myself wishing I had never remarried. But then I feel guilty for thinking that way. Despite this mess, I do love Abigail. We've had some wonderful times together, but I'm not sure love is enough to overcome this level of betrayal and conflict. I'm not sure what the future holds for my marriage or my relationship with Emily. Right now, I'm just trying to focus on running my business and getting through each day. I appreciate everyone's support and advice during this difficult time. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update. The situation with Emily and Abigail has only gotten worse, so I wanted to share what's been happening. Emily is still refusing all contact with us. Abigail has been leaving her tearful voicemails and sending long emails begging for forgiveness. But Emily either ignores them or responds with angry messages blaming us for ruining her life. Last week, things escalated even further. Emily showed up at my office unannounced, demanding to speak with me. When my assistant told her I was in a meeting, Emily started screaming and causing a scene. She knocked over a display of plant samples and threatened to expose me for stealing her inheritance. I had to call security to remove her from the premises. It was humiliating and disruptive for my employees. I've had to implement new security measures to prevent her from coming back. Abigail was furious when she found out I had Emily removed by security. She said I should have just talked to Emily and tried to work things out. But I don't see how that would have helped when Emily was acting so irrationally. The whole incident has made me realize I need to take legal action to protect myself and my business. I've filed for a restraining order against Emily to keep her away from my office and job sites. I've also sent her a cease and desist letter regarding her claims about inheriting the business. Abigail hit the roof when she found out about the restraining order. She says I'm being cruel and overreacting. But I feel I have no choice. I need to safeguard my livelihood and my employees. This situation has made it crystal clear that my marriage to Abigail is over. We're sleeping in separate bedrooms and barely speaking. Abigail spends all her time either crying or yelling at me for how I'm handling things with Emily. I've contacted a divorce lawyer and will be filing papers next week. It breaks my heart that it's come to this, but I don't see any way forward for our marriage. The trust is completely broken. As for the business, I'm more determined than ever to protect it. I've updated all my legal documents to explicitly state that Emily has no claim on the company. I've also started the process of transitioning leadership to my operations manager, with the plan for him to take over in 5-7 years when I retire. The whole ordeal has stirred up a lot of memories and emotions. I find myself thinking back to when I first took over the business after my grandfather passed. I was only 30 and terrified of letting him down. But I threw myself into the work, often pulling 80-hour weeks. I made mistakes along the way, but I learned from them and grew the business beyond what even my grandfather had envisioned. I think about all the challenges we've overcome over the years: recessions, droughts that threatened our nursery stock, big commercial clients going bankrupt owing us money. Through it all, my employees stuck by me. We're like a family. The thought of betraying their trust by putting an inexperienced 23-year-old in charge makes me sick. I've also been reflecting on my relationship with Abigail and how things went so wrong. When we first got together, I really thought I had found happiness again after losing Lisa. Abigail seemed to understand my devotion to the business. She would bring me dinner at the office when I was working late and listen patiently when I rattled on about new landscaping techniques or issues with suppliers. But now I wonder if it was all an act. Did she always see me as just a meal ticket for her and Emily? Was she planning this takeover from the beginning? I hate thinking that way, but I'm having trouble trusting anything about our relationship at this point. I'm trying to focus on the future and moving forward, but some days the anger and hurt are overwhelming. I find myself wishing I could talk to my grandfather or Lisa. They always knew how to put things in perspective for me. For now, I'm throwing myself into work. We just landed a big contract to redesign the grounds of a local university. It's the kind of creative challenge I live for. I'm determined not to let this personal drama affect the business I've worked so hard to build. This whole ordeal has been incredibly stressful and painful, but I refuse to let Abigail and Emily's actions destroy the business my grandfather built and that I've spent my life growing. I'm going to focus on moving forward and ensuring the company's continued success. Thank you to everyone who has offered advice and support throughout this difficult situation. It's helped me stay strong and stick to my principles, even when it hasn't been easy.